Hey up, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about how to write your first book. And you might be thinking, Lewis, why are you sat in front of a tent and a motorbike if we're talking about writing books? But don't worry, all will become clear soon. So, if you saw my last video, you'll know that for the last year I've been helping people write their blog posts, articles and non-fiction books as a ghostwriter. But two questions keep coming up. How do I know what to write? And how do I get rid of distractions to actually get the writing done? So let's unpick these questions one by one. So once you've decided you want to write your first book, there's a number one rule when it comes to writing absolutely anything, and that's never to start with a blank page. So what do we mean by that? Well, if you sit down and all you have is a blank page, your mind is as blank as the page itself. You'll struggle knowing what to write, you won't know how to get started, and it's more of a brain dump than it is actually writing. When it comes to writing non-fiction, we want our ideas to be structured, so when we're writing, it needs to be clear and followable by the reader. So when it comes to knowledge management, there's an absolute rabbit hole that you can fall down on what's the best method and the best technique and the best tool, but honestly, there's just one simple idea that I like to use that helps keep all of my ideas structured and clear. And I'll throw this up on screen, but it's just a database in Notion. So if you're a Notion user, I can link a template that you can download. But all it is just a database with the sub and parent items turned on. Now, my top level ideas are categories or topics, and then each sub item is a part within that topic. Now, that leads us eventually to the very bottom ideas, and these ideas follow that flow so I know where every single idea is kept. Once I have ideas in this format, I then pad them out and I use different tags so I can have ideas, quotes, metaphors, or stories. I'll put the whole entire list here of the way that I tag things, and this enables me to keep all of my ideas in one place and expand them through lots of different levels of thinking. I keep this database updated every single day. Whenever I have a new idea, it goes in there, and when I'm stuck looking for something to write about, this is where I go first. Then, once I've got an idea that I know I want to write about, I pull everything related to that idea out of this database, and that goes onto the page. These are then my puzzle pieces, and I can start to rearrange the puzzle pieces to give me some structure for the article. So whenever I'm going about life and I hear a new story or I'm researching something new, all of my ideas go into this one database. That's all my book notes, all my clips from podcasts, from audiobooks, all my original ideas, they all end up in this one single database. And this way, when it comes to putting pen to paper, you have tons of puzzle pieces all ready to go. And so, how do you know when it's time to start your first book? Well, once you've got enough puzzle pieces in your knowledge bank, you might start to feel one single idea rising to the top. You might start to find most of your ideas are circling around one single point, or all of your ideas that you're researching, or the ones that just come to your brain out of nowhere, they all seem to have one thing in common. We call this in writing a through line. So with James Clear's book Atomic Habits, his through line that goes through every single chapter is about habits. And this is how non-fiction books are written. They just have one main idea, one big takeaway that they want the reader to go away and implement into their life. So with your knowledge bank, start to link ideas together, start to see how they form a bigger picture idea, and once you have that big picture idea, then you know what to write. That then gives you the book, and you can rearrange your puzzle pieces into different levels, different layers to make the framework of your book. And then when it comes to actually writing each paragraph, you've already got the ideas, the stories, the studies, the facts, everything all there ready to go. All that's left to do is actually write the book. So where does this through line actually come from? Well, in the last video, we talked all about getting to know who you are deep down. We talked about having a core direction, which is that feeling in our gut that drives us forward. It's that one direction that we're happy to follow for the rest of our life, no matter what. And that direction becomes our through line. They're so closely related, they're practically intertwined. So for me, one of my core directions is helping people design a life that they absolutely love. And it's super important to me. It's right at the core. And it's a journey that I've been on myself, I've helped other people overcome, and I wish absolutely everybody could know about it. So that logically makes sense to be the through line for my book. And when I go through my knowledge bank, all of my ideas, or most of them anyway, relate to helping people design a deeply fulfilling life. There's a great quote that says, to be able to write a great book, you need to first live a great book. And what that means is you have to know yourself. You have to go out there into the world and experience things firsthand for you then to be able to share those ideas with the rest of the world. So if you haven't already, go back and watch that first video. I talk about how to figure out exactly who you are, then how to put that out into the world. And once you've done that, check back here and we'll get on to talking about how to actually sit down and write the book. So you've got your through line, you know what you want to write about, you've got all of your ideas in your knowledge bank ready to go, and it's now just time to do the writing. But this is the second problem that everyone seems to have. How do you get rid of distractions, and how do you actually make yourself sit down and write? Well, if you're anything like me, I've been wanting to write a book for at least a year now, and I've barely written a page. So why hasn't it been a priority for me? Well, these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. What do you need to do to stack the odds in your favour so you're actually going to sit down and do the writing? We know we care about the idea, we just know that it might be a little bit difficult to get motivated, to remove distractions, to actually sit down and write. So, this explains the tent and the motorbike. What I found is that even if you have a really strong core direction, sometimes in life you get distracted or you just don't have the motivation to follow it. And this all comes down to your comfort zone and your boundaries. Your comfort zone is things you're comfortable doing in the whole of life. It doesn't matter whether it's sitting on the sofa, watching TV, scrolling through TikToks, going out, seeing friends, literally anything. It's just the things you're comfortable with. But the issue is when you're trying to follow your core direction, it might not lay within your comfort zone. And what we do when things get tough, when things get hard, is we default back to this comfort zone, even if it's not aligned to our core direction. So how do we stack the odds in our favour? Well, this all comes down to setting boundaries. So I like to think of our comfort zone as a squiggly blob and our boundaries as a big red dashed square. And they overlap. So sometimes there are areas that we're comfortable in that we're also happy to be within our boundaries. However, there'll be areas where our comfort zone exceeds our boundaries and areas where our boundaries chop off our comfort zone. And so there's two different areas that we need to have a look at. The first one is when our comfort zone exceeds our boundaries. These are the things that we're absolutely capable of doing, and sometimes we even default to doing, even though we want to implement strict boundaries to stop ourselves from doing it. And this is the traditional sense of boundary setting. This is what most of us learn when it comes to setting boundaries. Oh my God, that wind is strong. So this is the form of traditional boundary setting that we all know, but it kind of feels really limiting. And if I'm honest, I didn't really understand boundaries properly until I understood the second part. And that's the areas where our boundaries exceed our comfort zone. So this is the things that we want to do in life. They're aligned with our core direction, but we're not comfortable with doing it yet. And writing a book could be exactly that. So what do we do to get our comfort zone aligned to our boundary? Well, it's like anything in life. We just practice. We just slowly take one step forward, each step at a time, and we eventually get better. We eventually get more comfortable, we eventually start to enjoy the process, and ultimately our comfort zone expands to be aligned with our boundaries. However, we can only do this if we implement that first set of traditional boundaries. So we have to reduce our comfort zone in certain areas to allow it to grow in other areas, and that's how our comfort zone and boundaries interact. So it's not just about limiting ourselves, it's limiting ourselves in areas that are distracting us from achieving in areas where we want to progress. So a really basic example of this is you can't go out on a Saturday night and also go to a gym class on a Sunday morning. The two just don't work together. So you have to implement that boundary to say, hey, on a Saturday night, I'm going to be in bed by 10 p.m. so I can get up at 6 a.m, feel nice and fresh and get myself to the gym. So that's how it all works. We need to think of our comfort zone as a tangible, movable, growable thing, and we can manipulate it to be in line with our core direction with the use of boundaries. So how does this get us to a tent and a motorbike in a forest? Well, actually, to tell the full story, I'm in New Zealand right now, which is pretty far from home. But what I decided to do was create those really strong boundaries to incentivize myself to get writing. I've removed all of the distractions. I can't go on my phone. I've not got internet. I have to just sit here in this amazing scenery and to be honest, just sit down and write, or at least wait for the ideas to kind of come to me so I can write them later on. And now each day is designed so that all I can do is get up, maybe move somewhere new, get myself some breakfast, and then get my head in my laptop and start writing. And obviously make some YouTube videos along the way too. So I don't know if this has been clear, but essentially what I'm saying is I took most of my core direction elements, everything that I want to be like, all my core values, everything that I love doing, and I stacked them all into one massive project that would achieve the goal that I wanted to achieve, which was writing my first book. I gave myself plenty of time, and I gave myself deadlines to make sure everything was organised, so the day I landed here, it was all ready to go. I've got 6 weeks to write the book, which might not be enough time to get the whole thing finished. However, it's definitely going to be enough time to get that ball rolling, so I get enough momentum to keep going once I get back to the UK. Now, I know this is extreme, and I'm not saying everybody should just quit their job and go traveling for 6 weeks or book a holiday or anything like that. This is just the project that worked for me, that got me excited, that got me motivated to be able to put in those really strong boundaries to get me writing the book. There's a book by David Sivers called Hell Yeah or No, and that's the exact technique that I'm using to give myself a project that I feel like, hell yeah, that's all I want to do. I'm so excited to sit down and write in these amazing locations and share my ideas with you guys. So the question is to you guys, what's the one goal that you really would like to do, but you just can't find the motivation to do? It's aligned to your core, but you just find you're getting distracted and you're not able to make enough progress. Then once you know what that is, what are the boundaries that you can make? What are the things that you can implement? What's the project that you can design that takes all of those core direction elements, puts them into one thing, and it feels deeply fulfilling? Then that'll actually give you the motivation to sit down and do the thing that you're desperate to do and achieve the goal that you're desperately looking to achieve. So to recap, I know this video was supposed to be about writing your first book, and I know I went off on a bit of a tangent. I always end up back at that core direction because it's so important, and I really want you guys to realize that if you can find that core direction, not only do you find your book idea, not only can you design projects and a lifestyle that's deeply fulfilling, but you can also stack the odds in your favor so you can achieve the goals that you have. So to get started, you need to build this knowledge bank. You need to collate all your ideas so you can structure them. So when it comes to writing your ideas, you know exactly where to start. You need to find that through line. That's the one idea that you're happy to scream from the top of the hills and you want everyone to know about. Then you need to get all of the knowledge surrounding that idea, and you need to pad it out with stories, studies, metaphors, ideas, lots and lots of little puzzle pieces that when put together, they're going to make this massive puzzle that will be your full finished book. Then when you know what you want to write, all you need to do is design a project, design your environment so that the odds are stacked in your favor, so you'll actually sit down and write it. All right, thanks again for joining, and I'll catch you in the next one.